Is that not funny to you?
That's it is both funny and disturbing that you said that to me.
All right. What's
How are
going
you?
on, everybody? Welcome back. Shaken Not Stirred, episode 12, I believe.
Yep, episode
Spencer,
12.
good evening.
Good evening, Tristan. How are you?
I am fantastic. I see you're trying to hold back a smile, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
How are you?
Well, uh, after hearing what you just told me, I am slightly worried. Kidding. No, I'm good. A lot of good, a
I
lot
have
of
a
good.
very dark sense of humor.
Yeah, I think we all do. But no, a lot of good things going on. I'm feeling good. How
Awesome.
about yourself?
Same old, same old.
Yeah,
Working away, getting after it.
good.
I finished that Nick Bear hybrid athlete training, and I'm redoing it now, so that's
How
fun.
was it? How did you feel?
Really good. I
Yeah.
finished it right before we did the swim.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then I kind of have taken the last month or so, a little less, no, right around a month. Just kind of, not that I haven't been working out, but not as
Just kind of
intense.
resetting.
Yeah, not as intensely. Like I've been doing yoga, cryotherapy,
Nice.
more just kind of calming down. And I started on Monday getting back after it with the Nick Bear program, which I really like. Um, I was talking to a friend yesterday, and he introduced me to one of his buddies, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Tristan's gonna run an Ironman next year." And the guy's like, "You look too big to run an Ironman." And I was like, "Well, that's what I wanted you to say." So exactly, it's like
Yeah.
exactly what Nick Bear says, right? I want to be able to run an Ironman at it. I want to be over 200 pounds when I go to do it. So
Yeah.
that's a
Well,
little,
hey, if there's a guy who has proved everybody wrong, it'd be him.
yeah,
Pretty incredible.
absolutely. What's new
Yeah.
with you?
And, um, I mean, just working slightly, not different, but kind of adding to the mix of things that I'm doing.
Mhm.
So you and I have been talking about it, but something I'm super excited about is, and we've talked about this openly. I don't really hide it. I'm building a company, but you need to make some money along the way. So I've been really kind of dabbling in things. We can say a little story here, but I've been dabbling in different things to try and make some money for myself. Yeah, one of those things is dog sitting. Right? It's a great way to make some money, and
That's a great
people
way.
pay well
And
to get.
how did that go?
Well, it's gone well for a little while until I was attacked. So the story is on Facebook, there was an ad, basically, or this Facebook post for someone who needed a person to watch their dog for like almost 2 weeks. And it just said, come watch our dog. And it didn't say anything else. So I jumped all over it, and we set up like a meet and greet, right? People want to see you interact with the dog and make sure that they're okay with it. And so I get to their house, and we walk inside, and this little tiny dog runs up to me. And I was like, okay, cool. This will, it's fine. It's a little Chihuahua. And he was like, yeah, but we've got two other dogs. And I was like, okay. And he's like, they were both outside. And I was like, okay. And I look outside, and one of them was a big German Shepherd. It's like, cool, like German Shepherds, good dogs. And this other one comes up, and actually, before the dog walked up to the door where I could see him, and again, they're both outside. He said, the story behind our other one is I still can't believe this. He goes, we rescued all of our dogs, and I love when people rescue dogs. I've rescued mine as well, two of them at least. And he goes, the pound that we rescued it from, it was a kill shelter. So, I feel bad. I've got a big heart for dog. I love dogs. And he goes, but they rescued it from a huge drug bust, and they used this dog as a
Right.
protection security dog and for organized fighting. And I was like, I was like, okay.
Why didn't you put that in the Facebook
Yeah, and
ad?
he goes, my wife told you this? And I was like, no.
No.
And she was the one who I was texting with for a while. And I was like, no. And he goes, okay. And he goes, he's been doing really good recently for the past like 3 weeks. He really hasn't bit anyone. And I'm just thinking, what in the hell? But honestly, I didn't put a ton of thought into it because he was just kind of giving me all this information. And like, I'm not afraid of dogs. Um, and dogs, I mean, generally really like me. So I was like, I just didn't really put a lot of thought into it as he was telling me.
Yeah.
And he goes, the only two people that we've seen him bite is my wife's friend, and I think he was like his mom or something. And he goes, but it wasn't bad. And I was like, okay. And he goes, here's some treats. He goes, are you okay with this? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay, so I've got a shock collar on him. And he stood right there with the remote thing. And he's like, so I'm gonna let him in. And like people say, like cowboys, the stories of cowboys, right? If they're gonna go in a city and they're gonna attack somebody, it's always the sun at their back, right? Because it's harder to see them. Well, it's a dark house, and the only window that I could see was like the door that was a glass door, and it was bright outside. We live here in the desert, and I really couldn't see super well. And he opens the door, and the German Shepherd runs up to me, which doesn't scare me. Dogs always run up to you because they're excited. And the other
Right.
dog's running up to me, but I'm like kind of like watching both, and I go like this with my hands. Like I don't put it out like I go like this,
Hmm.
and the dog just jumps up and like grabs onto my hand with his mouth, obviously, and just chomps down on my fingers. And the guy's like he's screaming and yelling, and he's hitting the remote, and I hear the dog yelp, and the dog runs off. And I grab my hand like this, like it obviously hurt. But when things happen so fast, it's
Right. It's happening so quick, you didn't even feel
yeah,
it.
like it didn't hurt that bad. My hand felt really hot, and I was kind of
Hmm.
freaked out to look at because he bit my hand hard. And this is an 80, 90 pound dog. It's like a pit
Right.
bull.
It's not a small dog, and they have very, very, very strong jaws.
Yeah, and it's like a pit bull Rottweiler mix, and
Hmm.
I'm grabbing my hand like this, and there's just blood going everywhere, and I was like, "Oh my God, did I lose a?" I was kind of worried to look, and I walk over to the sink. I turn the sink on, and there's just blood all over the sink, and I look, and my fingers, I mean, they're not in good shape, but I didn't lose anything,
Yeah,
and yeah, I mean, I started to get all dizzy. I was like, not feel. It was crazy. It was a
that's wild.
terrible situation. He was like, why don't you
Yeah.
follow me to the bank so I can give you some cash? And I was like, all right. So,
I, I think it does. It means a lot that you're not the type of person that's going to go and freak out because it's really not the dog's fault.
no,
You know what I mean?
dude, I
And
left there. I
it's yeah,
couldn't tell you
yeah,
how bad I feel like for the dog. Like the
yeah.
dog has been abused his entire life.
Right. Like the dog didn't sign up to be a freaking fight
No,
drug
it
dog.
makes me sick. I mean, I hate thinking
Yeah.
of stuff like that, and so I could not. I don't think I could ever be upset with the dog.
Yeah.
And I'm not. I mean, I'm the owner of the dog. The current owner definitely could have gone about it a better way, but
And at least prepared you for that.
yeah, but
But in the moment, it sounds like they, did everything they could.
yeah. So yeah, that was the story. I've never had that happen before, so
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
yeah, it was crazy.
But yeah, exploring other avenues now.
Yes, yeah. So I'll get through it quickly, but basically, I was talking with somebody that I know pretty well. Guy's been basically an entrepreneur all his life. Jocko, go, let's go. Uh,
New label.
and not like huge businesses, smaller businesses, but he's done well for himself. Kind of a single man shop, and a sharp guy, but not necessarily like a sales guy. And his businesses, for whatever reason, started to kind of decline over the past year or so, and he really needed to make something happen. And he saw an advertisement for a company called Sunrun, and basically they are a solar company. They're the largest solar company in the nation. They do about 14 billion in revenue. They IPO'd about 2 years ago, and fascinating company. He started talking to me about it, and so he's a sales guy
Keep
for them
talking.
now.
Give me 1 second. Keep talking.
Sure, yeah. So he's a sales guy now, and he's just absolutely. I mean, he's crushed it, and the numbers really that he's produced and sort of the averages across the salespeople nationwide is just, I mean, it's incredible. And I went and met with the sort of the district head for all of Southern California. This guy was a big, big hitter, makes a couple $1 million a year in cash commission. Uh,
Hmm.
big, big stock plan as well for employees, all employees. throughout the company. So I mean, he is bringing home several $1 million a year. And went and met with him, and it was supposed to be kind of a 20-30 minute, interview type thing. And then we were sitting there for almost 2 hours. And so, I'm going to be doing that now. I wouldn't, I
Awesome.
don't want to say on the side because it is a full-time thing. I mean, it's, minimum 40 hours a week,
Yeah.
but it's more so in the evenings, kind of when everybody's getting home and,
Right.
before dinner,
So
after dinner.
during the day, you can focus on the things you need to focus on for your own business, and
Yeah.
then go and do this kind of stuff at night.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm super excited. I mean, I'm really, really excited. The upside is there. I don't have
Hmm.
like that direct sales type of experience, but I have a lot of. It's just a different type of sales that I've done,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
just been, it's been constant. So I'm pretty confident in it.
Yeah.
Definitely be a
I
learning
mean,
curve.
one of your mentors, I remember him talking to us a while ago, and he talks about how he started off going door to door, and um, you probably know exactly what I'm
Yeah,
talking about already. But yeah, I mean, the guy's absolutely killing it
right.
nowadays, and got to start somewhere, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, Ross Perot, right? Ross Perot, a
Hmm.
big, huge billionaire. I mean, he started. I can't believe I'm blanking on the name of. No, he was with IBM for a long
Mm.
time. So he was the top sales guy for IBM. He was making more than the CEO of the company. And
Wow.
yeah, and IBM is one of the biggest, companies in the world at
Hmm.
the time, especially. And they came to him and they're like, "Hey, listen, you're making more than our CEO.
Right.
Can we have a conversation about more of an executive type role?" And he was like,
No.
nope. And then he went off and started his own company and obviously, ended up running for president and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I mean, sales is sales. I mean, we've talked about it on here.
Everything, everything, any business, doesn't matter what it is, whether it's nonprofit, for profit, a service type, or a product, you're selling something,
Not even
right?
business every day, right? You've boyfriend or
I mean,
girlfriend,
literally everything.
you want to see this movie, they want to see that movie. You end up
Yeah,
selling them on why they should see the other one. I mean, it's
exactly. I want you to be my boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever it is,
yeah,
right? You got to sell that person on why
yeah.
you're fit for that role.
Yeah, so I mean, this will be very different. Most of the sales that I've done over the past 2 years is all like I've worked from my computer. My computer kind of
Hmm.
represents like my life, and this is
Yeah,
door to door. So it'll be a huge learning curve, but it'll just add on top of what I've already kind of been able to develop for myself. So I'm really, really excited about it. Having been here in the desert for all my life, 24 of the 25 years I've been alive.
yeah.
I know a lot of people. This is the prime market. It's always sunny. It's always hot here. So
Hmm.
I'm really excited. That's what I'll be doing, and we'll give updates. Let you know when
Yeah.
I get my first sale through. So I'm excited.
Bingo. Well, I'll just throw it out there. If anyone's going to go out there and crush it, it's you, my
I
friend.
appreciate that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's the
Uh,
plan.
you're going to have a lot of fun, especially when you understand the ways of the world already with, what you've studied and what you've been doing lately, and the people you've had around you. I think you're going to go into it with a really good mindset to just absolutely crush it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will admit though, the thing for me that I'm gonna really have to rely on, kind of the people in my circle that know my business side of my life is,
Hmm.
I have to stay focused on like the bigger goal, right?
Yeah,
And being
absolutely.
a solar sales guy, like I'm not
That's
degrading
not,
it, but
yeah,
that's not my goal. That's you don't become, you don't become a billionaire. You don't become worth 500 million bucks
right.
by just doing, sales. You make a
Yeah.
ton of money. I mean, generational wealth. You can't.
But I mean, look at your, the guy you said makes, let's say he brought in $1 million a year. He'd have to do that for 500 years.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
And that's if he's saving every penny.
Exactly right. So,
So yeah,
it's not the end
just put it in
goal, but
perspective
it's
for people.
definitely something that I can do to generate a ton of cash.
Hmm.
Which I'm a big fan. We'll talk about that in the coming weeks, right?
Yeah.
Money management. What do you do with your money?
Yep.
So
That's going to be a topic going forward.
yeah.
So.
So I mean, point being, I just that's one thing I know myself. Like if I start getting some momentum and I know where I want to go, I get
Hmm.
very obsessive over it. So I just got to really gauge myself and kind of keep the long-term goal in sight, but it doesn't mean that I'm
Mhm.
going to be, part-time at this. I mean, my hours will just increase, right, substantially, and
Yeah,
that's just the way it is. So
for sure.
I'm willing to do it. And I'm also excited to do it, right? Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I have to do it. Um, but even if I didn't necessarily have to, honestly, I think I would. I'm really excited about it. So,
Just to get the experience and, be I don't want to say check it off the bucket list, but it's almost what it is,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
In a way. Yeah.
yeah. And my last point here is, like I was telling you before this, I mean, when you believe in something that you sell, right? You were at Tesla for a long time. I
Hmm.
know you're a big Tesla guy. You're an Elon
Yeah.
guy, as am I. But I mean, it's a whole nother ball game when you really believe in what you're selling and you believe in the
Yeah.
results and the product. And
Absolutely.
I mean, I just can't believe, like, this company. It's truly remarkable, kind of what they've done and what they're doing. I mean, anyways, so I'm pretty excited.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Yeah,
And I'm excited for you.
thank you. Appreciate
But
it.
let's jump into our topic for the night.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way to sugarcoat it. I'm just gonna come straight
Let's
out.
hear it.
We were given this topic by a friend.
Yep.
Someone had sent it to Spencer and said, this is something, we'd like to hear and have you guys talk about. And that's gonna be not giving a shit.
That's right.
What does it mean to not give a shit? How do you not give a shit? Uh, there's gonna be a lot of cussing in this one.
Yeah, we're gonna get down and dirty, but I mean, this is obviously a topic that has become extremely popular. I can't say over the past X amount of years because I don't know how many years, but it's certainly a topic that everybody likes to talk about.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think a lot of people like to talk about it. Very few people can master it in the right way. A lot of people
Yeah.
cannot care. Uh, but
Hmm.
I don't know. I would not agree that that's the right path to take, just to not care and only
Right.
focus on your perception of what you're doing and how well
Hmm.
you're doing it. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, let's start with let's start with this. What is your version or definition of a proper way of not giving a shit? Well, not giving a shit. Not giving a shit what people think about you. Let's do that.
I got you. Yeah. Um, so
Because you can take that
I
in so
think
many different ways.
I know,
Go
right?
ahead.
So something I talked to you earlier about ever so slightly. I don't know how many of our viewers, or I don't even know if you've kind of studied Stoic or Stoicism.
Not really. I'm
Stoic,
familiar with
Stoic.
it, but I haven't sat down and like.
Right. So obviously, you know who Plato and Marcus Aurelius
Yep.
and Epictetus and all those guys were way back when. They were pretty much set the basis for Stoicism, like
Yeah.
Stoic principles for humans to live by. And one of those principles is to essentially it's to act independently of people's opinions. And I think that's the more proper way to look at it. Also, the more proper way to say, not give a shit what
Yeah.
people think.
Absolutely. Say that again.
Uh, it You're acting independently of other people's
Hmm.
opinions,
I like that.
and I mean it's essentially saying the same thing,
Mhm.
right? So basically, if you really dive into the Stoic principle, the message they're trying to get across is not. I've studied. I don't want to say a lot of it, but like I've read Marcus Aurelius Meditations, which was pretty much his notebook.
Have you really? You've read
Yeah,
the whole thing?
the entire thing, freaking
So
phenomenal.
just
That's all
a
I'm gonna say.
little quick point. I started watching my computer has been in the Apple Store for like 2 days, so it's hard to
Hmm.
work. But so at night I've been watching the Roman Empire series on Netflix. I don't know if you watched it.
I've heard of it, but I haven't
Yeah,
watched
so
it.
I started, and they start off, with Marcus Aurelius, which is cool because you always hear the name, but I've never like kind of seen the character acted, and
Right.
that's kind of where they start the show off. And they were talking about, how he was such a great warrior. He was a great
Hmm.
leader. I mean, he he's Marcus Aurelius, but at the same time, we talk about warrior in the garden, Gardner in war.
Partner in the war. Yeah.
But at the same time, he was this magnificent. I don't know if you'd call him a poet, but you know what I mean. So it was interesting.
Philosopher is
That's
what I
that's the
would
word I was
consider.
looking for. Yeah. So go ahead.
Um, but yeah, essentially, again, going back to rephrasing what it means to not give a shit.
Yep.
Is this thing? Sorry, I was getting some feedback. Um, Again, I'm now blanking on it,
Living
but
living independent of others' opinions.
yes, exactly. So the way I interpret that, right, is you can take people's opinions and take them in and take them for what it's worth. Take it with a grain of salt, right? And understand why they have those opinions and make a decision based off what you know is just and true or what they would say virtuous. Um, but I would argue like you don't have to kick other people's opinions to the side. You should still listen to what people have to say and then say, okay, going to a book we've talked about before. Um, why am I blanking? Come on. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie has a chapter where he talks about um, being able to take criticism. And this is something you and I
Yeah.
have talked about before, I'm absolutely sure of. But pretty much, you can't, everyone's got an ego, everyone's always going to have something to say. And so if you just diss what someone's going to say, it's not going to look good for
Yeah.
either of you, right? But if you say, okay, you know what, like I accept your feedback, said again, put it in your mind, but don't let that one phrase or that one thing that that person said ultimately through and through um, cause your decision. If that makes sense, you still want to make a decision based on what you think is virtuous and true to your own moral code, your own beliefs, whatever it is, and also try to understand where other people are coming from
Yeah.
as well.
I think a big factor in because a lot of people, at least I would imagine, a lot of people would say, okay, well, how do I know if the feedback I'm getting from someone is total bullshit or not? The
Mm-hmm.
way that I would say this is you have to be super, and we've talked about this endlessly, but be intentional about the quality of people that make up kind of your circle, right?
Yeah.
My circle's not huge, but the people that do make it up are high quality. In the business realm, that's kind of my board of directors. I mean,
Right.
these are big hitters. So when they give me
Mm-hmm.
feedback, 90% of the time I'm going to listen. Sometimes I go with my
Yeah.
gut, and sometimes I'm wrong and I learn, and sometimes I'm right, and they
Fail
and
fast, right?
they learn to trust me a little bit more. But I mean, if
Right.
if your circle is made up of 15 of your buddies from middle school, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not really doing something with their life, and they don't really hold the
Yeah.
credibility that you would ultimately want them to, then I mean, then you should really be aware of the feedback that you're receiving from them. But if you can honestly say that, what, the people that are giving me this feedback, these are high quality people.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't necessarily have to mean that they're super rich. It could be something else, right? Um,
Right.
but yeah, that was kind of a big factor for me is people will share their opinions with you when you ask for it, and probably even more so when you don't ask for it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't let it define you, certainly, but you really got to be intentional about the quality of the people that are, you know, kind of in your life and giving you that feedback. Um,
Yeah.
you talked to a guy, I think today, right? Very, very credible guy. His track record speaks
Mm-hmm.
for itself. He doesn't need to speak for it.
Yeah.
So when he gives you feedback, I mean, that's probably something you're going to write down and you're going to take very,
Right.
very seriously. If you were to go talk to, um, I don't know, the guy who washes your car, probably not, you're doing something that's super advanced. That's probably not the advice you're going to listen to on the
Right.
tech side of things. Very
Right.
simple example, but I think the principle is remains true.
Right.
So, anyways, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I'm totally there with you. Um, Now, what do you, and we used this word earlier right before we hopped on here, but what, how do you view the more reckless side of, quote unquote, not giving a
Yeah.
shit?
So the way, yeah, and we did say reckless. I think reckless is the best word for it. So like you can say, you don't give a shit. The thing that keeps coming to my mind is, okay, you've got this kid who's, kind of a senior in high school now. He knows he's
Hmm.
about to go off to college. He knows all the reasons why he wants to go to college. And he's going with three of his best friends, and they're kind of, a lot of kids get to that rebellious stage, and
Yeah.
they listen to all these people on YouTube.
Especially if they've been forced and locked
Yeah.
up throughout their whole childhood, and it's like, no, you can't do anything. You got to stay home, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And then they go
Yeah.
out
And
and,
they
yeah,
listen to all these people on YouTube and they say, you shouldn't give a shit about what anything, do what you want. Life is
yeah.
short. You got one life to
Hmm.
do it. And so they start to rebel against their parents. And hey,
Hmm.
believe me, parents are not always right. I think parents a lot can be
Right.
full of shit sometimes,
For
just like
sure.
anybody can. But, you know, the parents have been there and they've done that. So let's say they've got those credible people, but those credible people are their parents, right? A really successful father, very successful mother, define success however you want, but they did things right. Well, when they're giving them advice and the son or the daughter, whoever that is just completely writing it off and saying, maybe not to their face, but I don't give a shit. I couldn't care less about what they're telling me. I would say that's probably
Yeah.
reckless.
Hmm.
So I mean, just going about things, you know, here's another way to look at it. You have a really arrogant athlete, right?
Hmm.
And this athlete is naturally gifted. Like, I mean, they are
Yeah.
just incredibly gifted athletically, God-given talent.
Someone who doesn't think they need to
Yeah.
consistently improve and
Yep.
look for areas to improve in order to get
Yeah,
better,
yeah,
right?
and then you've got this coach. Let's say the coach played in the NFL for 4 years, and they were a big time recruit, had a knee injury, and blah 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 blah. Well, the coach didn't have the career of, let's say Deion Sanders or Peyton Manning or Tom
Hmm.
Brady, but the guy made it to the level that everybody aspires to. Well, this kid thinks he's got the world figured out, and this coach, he made it to that level, but he also sort of got demoted from that level for a reason that maybe he could have avoided. So the lesson he takes home
Yeah.
is a strong one, and you can bet your ass then when he sees a talent that reminds him of his younger self, he's going to be all over that talent when they're not really doing what they should be doing. And that kid might say, F that guy. Like you, sure you made it to the NFL, but I want to be a Super Bowl MVP and you weren't, so I'm not going to listen to you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what a lot of people would go to
Yeah,
and just think, why am I going to listen to you if you haven't
yeah,
done
and,
it,
and what
right?
a and what a
And
what a reckless thing. Um,
it's horrible because you can learn so much from so many
yeah,
people. They, like you said earlier, it doesn't have to be the richest
yeah,
people in the world. It doesn't have to be the most successful people in the world, depending on how you define success, right? But everyone has gone through life, and everyone has got, I don't want to say everyone has something that they're super wise on, but you know, there's 7 billion people on this planet, and we're two of them, right? But you surround yourself and you talk to people enough, and you learn from literally every single conversation you have. And I guess I'll just give this as an example, right? I had a guy across the gas. He was at the gas station across the street from me. Homeless guy. I don't know if he was homeless, but in a obviously in a bad spot. Came up to me, asked me for money, whatever. I had $10 cash on me, and that was it. And I normally don't give anyone cash, right? But I gave him the $10, and I said, "Look, I want one thing in turn for this $10." And this was right after I moved out here to
mhm,
Newport. I handed him the $10 and I said, I want one thing. I said, give me your best piece of advice.
Huh. What a great question.
And I honestly, I don't even know why. I don't want to say I don't know why I asked it. I know why now, but in the heat of the moment, most people would be like, "Oh, get away from me. Here's $10." You know what I mean? But again, the guy, he wasn't violent or anything. He was just like, "Hey, can you help me out?" And he was older too, so I was like, "Okay, this guy's, maybe seen it all, maybe been through it all. Who knows? No one knows his story. He could have been a multimillionaire one day, and then, bad things
Hmm.
happen. It's life." So I said, "Give me your one piece of advice." And he said, "Never hold a grudge against family."
Wow.
He said, "I haven't talked to my mother in 10 years or whatever it was." And he goes, "It's my biggest regret of my life. And she'll probably never talk to me again. And I've tried to get a hold of her and everything." He's like, "I don't want anything from her but to see her again." And since then, I'm like, it truly speaks wonders about the type of advice you can get from people. And most people would look at that guy and be like, "Why would I ever take advice from him? He's on the streets. He's got no gas in his car." You know what I mean? But there's always something you can learn from
No,
somebody.
that's an incredible example. I didn't know. That's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And that being said, like typically, if I'm going to ask someone for advice, like there's kind of this little phrase I use, but like if I'm going to ask someone for advice, again, typically, not every time, but typically, let's say it's on the business side of things, I'm generally going to ask someone who is or maybe close to where I ultimately want to be, right? Um, because just logically, it would make more sense to ask someone who's closer to that stage than someone who's not.
Right.
But like you said, I mean, uh,
But that doesn't mean you wouldn't. I know you would definitely take advantage of an opportunity
oh, for
around
sure.
you if it presents itself. You know what I mean? I'm not saying taking a job or something when I say opportunity. I'm saying if there's an opportunity to receive some type of advice or direction or something, no matter what it is, and no matter um, you know, what facet of life it applies to, you
Yeah,
would take it.
and one of the best examples of this is the and I know you've seen this, but the video of Elon when he's out there like on the ground and the rockets are behind him, and the interviewer is like they're just walking,
Hmm.
talking casually, and the interviewer asks him, I can't even recite it, I'm not a rocket scientist, but he asks him a question, like a very technical question, like fuel distribution or
Hmm.
something, and Elon starts to answer it, and he goes, "Have you seen this video?"
Hmm.
Okay, so he goes, he's like, actually, now that I think about it, and the guy, they literally changed the way that they build these rockets because this one guy, something along those lines.
Okay, I did.
I could be
I
butchering
did see
it, but
this.
like, you know what
No,
I'm
I know
talking
what you're
about?
talking
So,
about.
yeah. So, I
Yeah,
mean, anyways, that's a perfect example, though. Phenomenal advice.
you're talking about one of the smartest and one of the richest
Oh, yeah.
people in the world, all the resources in the world, and he got an idea sparked from somebody who probably knows little. I don't want to say little to nothing, but far less than what
Yeah, it was so cool because you
Elon's.
could you could literally watch Elon like processing it, and then it clicks in his mind, and he goes,
Yeah.
that makes total sense." And to my knowledge, they changed it because the same interviewer went back, a year later, however long ago, and he brought it up to Elon. He was like, we were standing right here when we talked about this, and we ended up changing. And so,
Hmm.
anyways, it's that's a very similar example, but
If you want, I pulled up
yeah,
the video.
absolutely.
Should I share it on here so people can see? All right.
Yeah, it's a great video. I just saw it again. It's older video, but I just saw it again on Twitter or X. Yeah, there we go.
Can you see this?
You don't need a separate hot gas thruster system. You don't even need a cold gas thruster system. You already have hot gas. For the booster, right? To meet the question requirements to meet the part.
Yes, yes. But this is only for the booster, right?
Yes.
You can see him right now.
Although arguably, now you mention it, we might
Love it.
be wise to do this for the ship too. So actually, we should really be the vast majority of our maneuvering should be with the hot gas that's in the ship. Thanks. Now
That is so awesome, dude. Here we go.
several
Wow.
months later.
So it's a significant optimization, massive cost savings to use the ullage gas for attitude and reaction control than to have separate cold gas thrusters. I love it.
That is so cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's awesome. But I mean, that's a live example. It's probably the best example that you could, that you could give. But back to the topic though. I mean, I will say we talk about reckless ways of not really giving a shit about what people say, but um, it is really important because when you are pursuing something that requires a lot of focus, especially in the world of entrepreneurship, where I mean, you are incredibly self-dependent, and you really,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sounds so cliche, but you really got to believe in yourself and your ability to execute on what you are pursuing. I mean, I've had people,
Yeah.
we've talked about it too, but that one story, I mean, I've had people just try and crush me. And when it doesn't work on the business
Yeah.
side, they shift and start attacking you personally. And it's like, what the hell is going on here? And it really does, it really makes you
Yeah.
think. And I don't think that's a bad thing because actually, no, I wouldn't say it's not a bad thing. It's a really good thing that it makes you think. I think if you don't
Mhm.
think about it, that's probably not a good thing.
I think that's a great example of when to I don't want to say it's not really reckless, but like you really shouldn't give a shit what someone like that thinks about you. You know what I mean? Going back to what you said, you need to be able to read and really see where people's intentions lie, because if they're talking to you and giving you advice or giving you their feedback, what they think and whatnot, you should know at your core, and you should know by the way the message is delivered how they mean that, right? Like, does this person really care about my success, or do they not really care? That it sounds like that person, it sounds more of like a jealousy thing. They don't want to see you do better than them, and so they're like, don't do that,
and
do this.
and it also goes back to the top. And it goes back to the other topic of when we talked about the difference between jumping into entrepreneurship and going to get experience with another company. Like, I'll tell your story in a few sentences. You are working with a large company that is currently doing what you want to do independently. You're doing it because success leaves clues, and you want to learn about how this individual created a firm, and the firm created these beautiful projects, which equals success, right, in that realm. Where was I going with this? But you're doing okay. So here we go. You have to really, like, when you are pursuing something, no matter what you do, most likely people have done it before, right? And they may not have, nobody created Tesla before, or that same concept before Elon did, but people have built companies. People have built great big companies. People have used electricity. People have done all these things. And he had to have, they said, how did you learn about building rockets, right? He literally says he read a book. He just read books on it. So
yeah, he literally sat there and read about rocket propulsion.
Yeah, so I mean, why does he read books? Because
stuff.
success leaves clues, and you got to learn it. You got to learn it from somewhere. So again, that's another point that speaks against just not giving a shit, right?
Yeah.
You just it comes back to the concept that we talked about of that circle has to be high quality. It just has to, because it's a lot easier. You want to make it easy for yourself to make decisions in hectic situations. And the best way to do that is repetition of good habits. And when you really don't know anything, you don't know what to do, seek counsel, right? We've talked about that. But you got to make sure that the counsel is quality.
Yeah.
The same principle applies here. Listen to people, but also be able to tune it out. Sometimes you have to be just really, really stubborn, and you just have to go against what conventional wisdom is. The example that we were talking about with me, right, when that certain individual just started berating me. I mean, I've never been talked to like that in my life, been yelled at in football for 10 years, but never like this. the hard part about that
Mhm.
was this guy sort of is where I want to be. I mean, he is ridiculously successful, but he had Jesus Christ syndrome. And what
Yeah.
worked for him
Yeah.
doesn't always mean it's going to work for somebody else. And just because he chose not to do something
Right.
else doesn't mean that that something else would not have been successful. There's more than one way to get to success. And
Right.
yeah,
There's no
and I
single
didn't
path.
make all this, the building the company part. I didn't make this up on my own, right? I did the seek counsel part,
Right.
and that's the advice that I take, and I trust. I have a deep
Mm-hmm.
level of trust and faith in them, and that's what I listen to. So I could have a guy who is ridiculously successful. He'll take his company public in the next 5 years. Tell me a bunch of
Right.
stuff and still know that that's not what I should be listening to. So yeah.
And I'm sure there were some things that you could extract from it and say, okay, maybe I should, look a little bit more
Absolutely.
into that. You know what I mean? But not taking in the full message of stop what
Yeah,
you're doing and go do
absolutely.
something else, right?
No, it's totally.
Yeah. Um, I want to take a quick step back here because I feel like we've been talking about a very complicated form and I guess more in a business sense of not giving a shit. I and I don't know, you could probably talk about this better than I could,
Sure.
because you have a younger brother. For someone like Sterling, right? What would
No, I just said yep.
What's up? Oh, I thought you said something. If let's just say his friends at school were saying things to him that made him feel like, I need to start changing what Sterling does because I want to conform to be like my friends. What would you say? What would you say to your brother?
No, I totally get what you're saying.
You get what I'm saying? Because it's very hard at a young age to understand and pick up on, I need to do what's virtuous for myself and not do what all my friends are doing, right? Let's just give an example. Like if all of Sterling's friends went and bought Xboxes and only wanted to play video
And
games
they're all
and
great
never hang out in
athletes, and
person
they all
again.
started to quit sports.
Right, precisely. And partially, I think that decision would be a lot easier for your brother because he has you. But let's say if you weren't around, I don't know. Put yourself in Sterling's shoes. How do you look at that as someone in that age group? And what would you tell someone if you had to advise them?
No, it's a tough question.
It's a tough question, so take them if you need to. Yeah.
It's very easy. It's really easy to tell people like, don't listen, don't care about what, those people think because they don't matter. But you know what? The truth is to like that kid, that really does matter. Right. Because like, I mean, I remember in high school, like
right.
I will compliment myself, but basically I'm complimenting like my mother. But I'll just be blunt about it. Like I can honestly say like I was really blessed with the ability to not feel a ton of pressure to try and be the way that the kind of the typical high schooler was when I was in high school or even in college, right? I just, I'd love to say I don't know why, but I mean, my mom played a huge role in that, and that started when I was really, really, really young. But that's not the norm. It just isn't, and it's really, really difficult for a lot of people. So, it just keeps going back to what we've been talking about. You have to have the good counsel. I like to think that I am the good counsel, for my brother. But I had a really, really tough conversation. It was a very stern conversation with my brother because he was really, this kid. Here's an example. When COVID really kicked off and started, the gym where we live closed down, so you had to work out outside. And yes, we live in the desert, but it gets crazy cold here in the wintertime, at least during the night. Yeah. And the nights and in the mornings, I mean, it would get down to 31, 30 degrees. And this kid at the time, he would have been 10, 11 years old. Yeah, 10 years old,
Then,
10, 11
right?
years old. And he was up with me every single morning at 5 o'clock. We have to lift outside and it's 32 degrees, 34 degrees. And I mean, he did, so he's been like that since he was little. And he's been like that pretty consistently. I've had to
Hmm.
push on him when he gets a little lazy sometimes, but like I really started to notice it a couple months ago
Right.
when he was getting into high school. And you could totally see kind of slipping because you're getting into fresh new territory. It's unfamiliar. So you want to, human nature is I want to make
Yeah.
this feel as comfortable as
Yeah.
I can for myself. And that's,
You're no longer
yeah,
flipping
and
the
that's
pages.
and that's when they
You're in a
really
whole new
start to
chapter, right?
try
Yeah.
and fit in certain areas. And like I sat him down. I mean, we had a
Mhm.
really, it was only me talking, but I had a very, very stern conversation with him. And this is what I said. I said to him, I said, man, I had friends in high school that I literally would call like my brothers. I mean, we were so close. Like I went through some really hard things with my family. And I mean, my one friend, I've got a single mom. My one friend went out on his own and he like made this like sounds silly, but it was a very hard time. He like made my mom like this basket thing with like all kinds of stuff in it, and like he and his mom got like my mom like a massage at this place. They just went all out, and I mean I had incredible friends.
Yeah.
I don't talk to most of them now. I'm not saying that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. We went in different paths.
Yeah.
Um, but that's just how life is. And I told my
Mhm.
brother that I was like, I know it feels like you really gotta you gotta sit on the same bus that all the other kids do. But I said, Sterling, to the extent that you can, and as much as I will remind you, you got to remember that 99% of the stuff that you do care about, and I totally get why you care about it because it's legitimately hard. It's not going to matter in the long run.
Yeah.
And I said, but here's what I will tell you.
Mhm.
You have given me real evidence that you're an extremely unique kid. And I went down the list of examples to kind of, help build them up at
Yeah.
the same time. I'm really hammering on him. And I said, you've given me all these reasons to think
Yeah.
that you are super unique. And you did all that at a time where you didn't really care about
Yeah.
anybody. So like it was genuine. You didn't just do it for me. Um, and I said, with all
Right.
considering all of that, if I watched you go the next 4 years from now until your senior year graduation and then into college, and athletically, you did not push yourself and drive yourself, and you basically wasted your athletic talent. And I went down the list of them, and I said, "Man, you could kill someone, and I will always love you." But I said, "You will lose my respect. You will completely lose my respect. Your own brother, your only brother, I will have no respect for you if I see you completely, just disregard these things because you wanted to just fulfill."
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Disregard what
I
you're
mean, he was like
capable of.
really like looking at me like, because
Yeah.
it's hard to hear that. And I wanted it to be really
Yeah.
hard
No, I mean
for
it
him
is
to
for
hear.
sure. And
But I said, look, man, everybody is on Earth for like a specific reason. I think we've talked about this as well. Like, I think everybody's here on Earth for a specific reason, and they're all
yeah.
different. But I do think everybody has a shared reason, which is to be all that you were created to be. And I said, you will be, you will
Absolutely.
be. I'm trying to remember exactly what I said, but I said you will basically be completely, I can say this because you'd be completely worthless because you basically took every freaking gift. He is extremely intellectually bright, like off the charts.
Yeah, for sure. I've noticed that like when I go over there, I've got a lot of friends and, family and people around me that have kids that are the same age and they're all shy. All they want to do is, and I think we talked about this in our first episode, but like they just want to sit there on their
Yep.
phone and do nothing. They don't want any part of anyone.
Yeah.
I walk in and
Yeah.
Sterling's like, "What's up, Tristan? How's it going, bro? What's going on? What's new? How's work? How's business? How's this? Are you training? Are you lifting? Are you doing pull-ups? Can you do more pull-ups than me? I bet you can't. Blah, blah, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
he is a
Both
firecracker, and I
intellectually,
love
like,
it.
in regards to school, and emotionally, he's very, very advanced, and it's very clear. Um,
Yeah.
but I just told him, I said, like, I said, God blesses everybody, and this would rub a lot of people the wrong way, but I actually believe this. God blesses everybody with something, but I think he blesses some people with a lot more than others. And I
Hmm.
said, man, you are one of those individuals who was really blessed. And it would be such a shame and a waste of a
Hmm.
life for you not to really lean into those things. And
Yeah.
I said, if you can
Yeah.
focus on how you graduate over the next 4 years, because it's really hard for a kid, let anybody, but let alone a kid, to focus on when they're 30, 40, 50 years old. That doesn't even matter to him because he just got into,
Right.
yeah, you
No,
can't, so it's not even
it
smart.
doesn't. You can't even comprehend that.
I know.
I'm
So
about to be
it's not
25, and I
even
can
the
barely
right thing to
comprehend
do to
30.
really talk to them
You
about
know?
that. I mean, you should talk about it, but that's not what's going to get to them.
Yeah.
So I said, just think about like really
Hmm.
what you want to be in 4 years because it will go by super fast. Some days it'll feel like it could not go slower, but it will go by really fast. And think about,
Yeah.
I know, I know.
I think about
And
we're about to be
I
3
said,
years out
think
of
about like
college.
who you want
That's
to be
insane.
when you graduate and focus on that and obsess over it. And then
Hmm.
make sure that the people that you allow into your
Yeah.
day-to-day circle are number one supportive, but number
Are
two, like
supportive of that.
they share that drive basically, and they share sort of your way of thinking. I said that
Hmm.
will make it a lot easier for you. It will make it very, very easy. Like the only way that I went to play college football, so I had a
Yeah.
coach who played in the NFL. So this is a perfect example. Played in the NFL. He told me that he wasn't going to do any of the recruiting for me. And that was like his job. He goes, I'm not going to do it. And he didn't want to do it because he didn't want to tarnish his reputation. He said that to me because I missed 50% of the games due to injuries, and he didn't want to try and push me out there to people that he's known for years. It's schools.
Right.
Yeah,
And
and
then
it's a
you
waste of a
go to
recruit.
their school and then
And I
get
said, okay, so I'll
injured,
do
and
it
then they're
myself. And I
what?
did all of my own like recruiting. Like I called Coach Maynard and I just forced my way in there and ended up playing college football. But my like willingness to do that and pick up the phone to do that is because my group in high school, number one, that same coach played in the NFL. He ran a very, very advanced strength and conditioning program all 4 years, and he hand selected. We only had a group of like 7 guys that would train in the mornings, but we were there 5 o'clock in the morning before the sun was up all 4 years. And
Yeah.
when that training program would end each
Hmm.
year, like we would still go out and we'd still do this, and like we were just literally obsessed with
Right.
crushing it on the field, and it translates into the next 4 years, right? Which is college. And then
Yeah.
whatever you do there is going to translate into the next
Hmm.
30, 40, 50 years. And so, you have to, focus on the long term, but
Absolutely.
do it by focusing on the short term that gets you to the long term. So,
Yeah. And
yeah,
you have to
yeah,
give
no, you do. I mean,
somewhat of a
you really
shit
do.
along the way.
But at the same time, just like the recruiting thing, I mean, you got to know what you want and you got to know like how to get there. And for me to play college
Hmm.
football, the only way to do it was if I was going to pick up the phone and send all the emails, and I did that, and very credible people who were where I wanted to be told me that there was like no chance of that, and I just had a gut feeling that they were wrong. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a long-winded way to answer the question, but I mean that's sort of how I would tee it up: is who do you honestly want to be when when you graduate high school? And my last Yeah,
So
yeah,
essentially, it's
and my
helping them
last
understand the
point here
vision,
is
right?
it gets
Yeah.
very difficult when you have a kid who is not even in high school yet, but he's got an older brother. I'm not talking about he and I, but he's got an older brother that is now in college and
Yeah.
he's with tons of girls and he talks to his younger
Hmm.
brother about it and he's showing him pictures of all these girls and all the partying, all this stuff. Well, that younger brother cannot wait for that. So try having the conversation about focus on the next 4 years.
Right.
You got to drive. You got to be focused. That kid is not. It's going to be very, very difficult to break through to that kid. So, not saying that there's no hope, but
Right.
holy cow! I mean, some people make it really hard for their kids to succeed, which sucks.
Mhm.
So that's probably how I would
Absolutely.
deal with it. Yeah.
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 No,
Anything else to add here?
Love
I
it.
think we've covered quite a bit.
yeah, I think we've
How would
pretty
you
much
wrap it up though? I mean,
smacked
we've
the
talked
nail
about
right
a
on the
lot. We've
head.
gone in different directions. Like, how would you wrap up? Tristan, how do I not give a shit about what people think about me?
I would just go back to say, you know who you are, you know what you want. If you don't,
Yeah.
you need to figure that out. We've talked about before, which Spencer now has me doing reflection. Sit down on a night that you can. Obviously, there's nights where you've got stuff going on. If it's a night like that, don't do it. Pick a night. If it's 2 weeks from now, sit down and reflect on what you truly want. What are you truly into? What do you excel for? And you'll be able to tell along the way, when people are giving feedback and people are saying these things about you or saying, or whether good or bad, you can take it all with a grain of salt and you know put together your own decision based on your own moral code and what others have to say. So the way I would put it is,
Yeah.
you should never recklessly not give a shit.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
got to
No, I
intentionally
totally
not
agree.
give a shit.
And I just think that um, it's the importance of the people that you do have in your life, because you do need feedback and you do need opinions and you need strong opinions and you need debate, right? I mean, that was a huge argument that I got in with that guy. Honest to God, I can't say that I came away with some revelation about myself, because I didn't. He was just an asshole. Like, that's just what it was. But
Right.
you need debate and you need
Mhm.
someone to really push on
Yeah.
you. And the right people will, right? The right people aren't always going to say, nope, you're doing a great job. Just keep going. Yeah.
Right. I was going to say, you don't want everyone around you to be a yes man. If you have everyone telling you you're doing great,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
amazing, you're the best thing that's ever walked the earth, you're not going to go anywhere, because you're never going back to the
Yep,
hard-headed
exactly right. So
athlete.
pick
You're
the
never
right
going to look for
people.
improvement.
It's super important. I mean, we've talked about that endlessly, but you can never stop talking about it. I mean, that I think that ultimately sets up kind of the
Mhm.
trajectory for your life. I mean, you have intentionally put yourself around very unique people.
Yeah.
Those people got you your job, and now you work with that individual, and it's exactly where you want to be. So
Yeah.
yeah. But hey, it is important,
Yeah.
man. You can't give a shit about. A lot of people speak a lot of bullshit, and you just can't listen to it.
Yep.
Yeah. So, like you said,
Yep.
self-evaluate. You got to
You got to
know
be able to
where
read
you're
it.
going, where you
Yep.
want to go, and ultimately just who you want to be. Like, really think deeply about that. And when you can define it, reverse engineer, make decisions based on that, and simplify it for yourself. People complicate this stuff. It's simple.
Yeah.
But simple is not easy. So,
Yep.
anyways, Tristan, I don't give a shit about your opinion.
No.
So, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Yes.
Everyone's got an opinion.
That was not
They're
it,
like
but
assholes.
I
Or what's
do. I'm trying to figure out the right way to say it.
what? You know what I'm talking
Everybody's
about,
got
right?
an opinion. They're all like
Hold on,
assholes.
hold on. We got to end on this.
No.
Everyone has an opinion.
There you go.
Opinions
Yeah.
are like assholes. Everyone
I don't
has them,
want to.
and they all
It's a
stink.
bad image, and I don't necessarily
Bingo.
want to think about it. So we can end it there and pick it up next week. Yep.
Episode 12.
Not stirred. See you guys.
Books. Keep it shaking. Good night, everyone.